Hey there, welcome to this week's astrological report. This is for March 10 through March 16 of 2026. Hope you're doing well. This week looks like we don't have too many major events happening, but we do have a couple things, including Jupiter stationing direct. That's official later on today, Jupiter at 15 degrees. Jupiter won't be moving. It's going to take a while to build up momentum, so it'll be stuck here at 15 Cancer for most of March. I'll talk more about that as I go through this report, but that is one major thing we have going on this week. And then by tomorrow, the moon in Sagittarius is making a square to the sun in Pisces, and that's the last quarter moon. The moon has lost half of its light by this point, and we have one more week left of this eclipse cycle. The moon will be waning all through the sign of Sagittarius, Capricorn, and Aquarius for the week ahead. Other than that, just a lot of lunar aspects every day as usual until we get to Friday on March 13, and that's when Venus makes an inconjunction to the south node as Mars is reaching a conjunction to the north node of destiny. So Friday, March 13 is a destined day, could have fateful results, long-term results based on what's playing out, especially for Mars types of things, military, overall action has fateful results. So just be mindful of that. I'll talk more about that as I go through this. And then the other event is Mercury in Pisces backing up into a conjunction with Mars, exact on Sunday, March 15. So really not too much happening. We see that now there's been a dynamic change since last week. Venus did cross that world point. We saw a few things happen. Kristi Noem got fired. The markets went through some instability. Luckily, Venus, Saturn, Neptune was in the weekend, so the markets were closed during the strongest part of that. And it seems like it's evened out a little bit today so far, but Venus is still in a weakened position for now. Jupiter stationing direct is helpful, but it's still not moving. It's going to take time for that to start showing results too. So just be more patient, continue to be patient as far as money, resources, but still Venus is now out in front of everything else. And it's going to be really picking up speed here, moving forward. So new dynamics around relationships and money. We still have all this Pisces pulling people into this sensitivity behind the scenes. Things are a little bit messy. Things aren't as clear as we would like them to be with this Mercury retrograde in Pisces. Today, that moon is making a square over to Mercury. We'll be dealing with that. Today has mostly difficult aspects besides the Jupiter stationing. So there's really not a ton of awesome things this week. We have a few aspects that are easy, but we also have a lot of challenging aspects throughout this week. Looks like March 14, when the moon is in Aquarius, making sextiles over to the Aries. It'll be with Pluto though, so it'll still be intense, but there's easier aspects on that day, but still a moon conjunct Pluto at the same time. So we're still in those vibes of eclipse vibes in the background, unpredictability. We're still in this mutable energy, which is being the need to be flexible and adaptable, and there can be changes that happen. Mutable signs also affect the nervous system a lot more, so there can be, this feeling of nervousness, restlessness in the background, just some funky vibes perhaps in the background with all this Pisces for now. And the moon here is just totally at odds with all of this Pisces. So that's what I'm going to start talking about. I'm going to go through the charts day by day. We're going to start here with Tuesday on March 10. And again, we see the moon. It's at 12 degrees of Sagittarius as I'm making this report right now. And the moon has already made a T-square to the nodes of fate earlier this morning. So today could also be a fateful day. We're at a crossroads with fate and destiny today. The moon being in Sagittarius just kind of shows that the energy is amplified for good or bad. Things can just be big, indulgent. There might be a need for more indulgence during this phase, especially because the moon has squares, which shows that things aren't as smooth. Emotionally, circumstances might not be as smooth during this transit today into tomorrow. So a stronger emotional need for something to be fulfilled, Moon here in Sagittarius also shows that there's a stronger connection for the need for freedom and independence and taking action and being adventurous, but it's also clashing with where the focus is and the background energy that again is more sensitive, more inward and behind the scenes and less outward and active. So perhaps a little bit of a clash for the next couple of days between the outward life and the inward life. Generally, the moon here shows that people also want to have a good time, have a sense of humor, joke around, not get too serious with things. It also can bring up an emotional connection to seeking of something, wisdom, knowledge, truth, education. There could be just, a stronger emotional need for seeking adventure, either, even up in the head or looking at philosophy, religion, belief, education, or literally traveling. But I would say if you are traveling, today could be a day that's not the best for traveling. Doesn't mean every single person will have an issue, but the moon is building that square with Mercury. So it does deal with travel issues. Even local, regional, everything mercurial today could be a little bit off, as that's the next aspect that the moon will make, is the square to Mercury. And this is first part of today. Probably one of the reasons that I'm having a hard time getting this video out. It's storming where I'm at, and it would just be nice to kick back and do nothing. But hey, I'm here trying to get this report out for you guys. I hope it'll be helpful. So it looks like late morning to afternoon is when the moon is square Mercury. Just creates a little bit of a clash between the mood, the feelings, the needs, and how people are thinking about things or communicating. Usually not the best time to publish or broadcast or do mercurial errands like emails or phone calls or even, local errands and traveling and stuff. There could be a few issues with that. It won't last long. This will just be a few hours of a little bit of tension there, again, between the heart and the mind and this overall circumstances of what's going on. Now, these are two big signs, Sagittarius and Pisces, ruled by Jupiter. So this is like big energy as well. It's a little bit over the top, perhaps here by late morning and afternoon. And then as we go forward, the moon in Sagittarius will make that in conjunction down to Jupiter. So having to adjust to certain things as the day goes on, might have to adjust to this inner feeling, these emotions, these needs. We are in the mutual reception between the moon and Jupiter. We're going to have that for for the first half of this year until Jupiter gets to Leo. Then we'll lose that mutual reception every time the moon goes through Sag. So there's a strong connection as well between the home, the family, the inner world, needing to be in comfort and nurturing. Again, kind of the vibes of a rainy day. Doesn't mean it's, of course, raining everywhere, but you get what I'm trying to say here. Circumstances are at odds, adjusting to that emotional need, those strong feelings of things, and again, the inward life versus the outward life. So you can see the moon has that square and an in conjunction and even the background T-square, so it doesn't look all that great all today. It doesn't mean it has to be terrible for every single person, but today just has a lot of tension. And then again, the final dynamic of Tuesday is Jupiter officially stationing direct by this afternoon and tonight. Let me just take a peek here. Day by day, see how far it takes till Jupiter leaves 15 degrees. It'll be slowly building up momentum by the minute there, day by day, but stuck at 15. Really, like I said, all of March. Finally reaches 16 degrees by April. So yeah, all of March, Jupiter stuck at 15 degrees of Cancer. So what this is saying is that there's big energy wherever you have 15 degrees of Cancer in your birth chart. So check your chart. Where do you have Cancer at? Wherever you have Cancer in your chart, that's where there's a lot of emotions and feelings in your life. That's where you have safety, security, and comfort in that area, depending on your moon's condition that rules it, and what else you have going on in the sign of Cancer. But again, that's where there's home, family, energy, vibes, domestic energy, nurturing, healing, caring. And that's where Jupiter has been since last year, trying to offer something of more emotional support for people. But if you have 15 degrees of Cancer, then, you're really getting this Jupiter stationary. And then even Jupiter on your planet all of March, which is super rare. So it all depends on what planet that is for you that you have. If it's Saturn at 15 Cancer, then it may not be as easy. Jupiter could be expanding the more difficult things for you about Cancer. If you have Venus at 15 Cancer, that's awesome. Jupiter's right on it. If you have the Sun at 15 Cancer, Jupiter's right on your Sun for an extended period of time, which only would happen. Jupiter only crosses your Sun every 12 years, but to stay there for an entire month is, very, very rare. So again, check your chart. Everybody that has 15 degrees of one of the water or earth signs, then you're getting an aspect from Jupiter to your personal planet. Now, you might have this good connection from Jupiter right now, but you could also have a hard aspect from Pluto or Saturn or Uranus or other things in your chart happening that could still be difficult, and Jupiter can make things difficult. Jupiter expands whatever it touches. So even if you have a positive connection in one of the water or earth signs that Jupiter's connected to you right now, if that personal planet in your chart has a hard aspect like a square, an opposition, then Jupiter will be amplifying that entire aspect. So it really depends on your chart, and how it could manifest, but it's still considered one of the more positive sides of the zodiac right now with this Jupiter stationary. Some people try to say it's like the luckiest day, or there's so much abundance. I wouldn't get carried away with that too much, generally speaking. But it just kind of shows this shift of energy, this momentum to be changing direction, which is offering more when it's direct, perhaps. Although I do like the Sun opposition Jupiter when Jupiter's retrograde, because that's a moment of culmination. But other than that, yeah, it's best when Jupiter is direct. It can offer more. And so now there can start to be this slow, gradual momentum of more and more support in certain places in our chart, depending if it aligns with us or not. So again, check your chart to see if you have 15 degrees in one of the earth or water signs. If you have 15 degrees of Aries, Capricorn, or Libra, then this Jupiter is making either a square or an opposition to your personal planet. And that can show that things are over the top for you all through March. There's too much going on with whatever that's connecting to in your chart. So squares or oppositions from Jupiter is just big energy, too much of a good thing sometimes, over amplified, overextended, so that's kind of how I'm looking at that Jupiter overall. And it is good that Jupiter stationary has the mutual reception with the moon in Sagittarius, because that's also an indication of growth and abundance that could happen from this stationary direct through the rest of March. More opportunity in different ways. But overall, the day still has a lot of challenges and difficulties with these difficult aspects. So that's what we have for Tuesday. Moving this forward, I'm going to go back by the hour. We move this forward, we get to Wednesday on March 11. And this is the day where the moon reaches the last quarter square with the sun, the crisis in consciousness phase of the lunar cycle. So this is a bit of a challenge. First thing on Wednesday, sets the tone for the rest of the day. This is a time of the lunar cycle where if there is any challenges going on, it's not a time to push too hard. This is more of a time to step back, let it go, come back to it later perhaps, work something out. It could sometimes show that there could be an emotional challenge for some people here on Wednesday. Might have to do something that they don't want to do, or just feel uncomfortable with something. Overall, it's like a clash between what people are focused on, where the sun is, behind the scenes, less solid, more imaginative, in your own world, kind of those kind of things, or creative or whatever. The moon over here in Sagittarius, big energy again. Things can be over the top. it's still, these are two signs that are still ruled by Jupiter. So everything is extra big with these squares going on the next couple of days, especially the fact that the ruler of both of these is Jupiter stationing. So everything is bigger than normal emotionally, energetically this week. So again, how people feel, their emotional needs, and what they're comfortable with is at odds with what the day is focused on and things like that. The inner versus the outer are clashing again. So a little bit of a crisis in consciousness, having to adjust, having to look at things in a new perspective, integrate, become more whole. But it can just show obstacles, challenges during the day for some people. People probably most affected do have around 20 to 21 degrees of one of the mutable signs, Pisces, Sagittarius, Gemini, and Virgo. Then you're wrapped up in this dynamic. But it's normal. We go through this every month and it'll move on. So that sets the tone for the day, a little bit of a challenging day. And really we have one easy aspect, I suppose, with the moon making the trine to Chiron as the day goes on, right there. So a healing alignment is in place for people, either for self or you and others or whatever, or the circumstances could just have a better feeling for the self on Wednesday, late morning and afternoon. And then the moon is in conjunct to Uranus, now at 28 degrees, the last 2 degrees of the zodiac, not of the zodiac, the last 2 degrees of Taurus, that Uranus won't be back for many, many years. So we're getting close to the end of that transit, but we're not quite there yet. So the moon in conjunct to Uranus will show, again, having to adjust to something that could be disruptive. The moon now reaching the end of Sag is getting ready to change signs. So there's a sense that there's an ending, a change coming here. And we're having to adapt and adjust feelings and circumstances based on what's happening by Wednesday evening and evening, night, depending on where you live there. And that's the last aspect until the moon changes signs, which will be late on Wednesday night into Thursday morning. So this changes the overall mood as the moon ingresses Capricorn for the next 2.5 days. Now the moon is being ruled by Saturn, which is entering new territory and moving forward in a spot that we haven't seen in 29 years. So now that Saturn is at 3 degrees, check your chart. Do you have a planet at 3 degrees of one of the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn? The United States has a planet at 3 degrees of Cancer. So Saturn will be squaring the USA Venus. We'll have to see what that shows. I'm not too convinced it's going to be awful, but we'll see. It'll be a quick square. But if you also have the Cancer, then you're going to have the Saturn square. If you have the Capricorn early degrees, you're going to get the Saturn square. And this moon is activating that square for all of us. So as the moon comes into Capricorn, the vibe gets serious. It gets a little slower. The mood gets definitely more of a global connection here, even on what's happening in the world. I would say by Wednesday night into Thursday has another activation of global developments as the moon activates that global point. And with the moon coming into Capricorn, Capricorn deals with governments, rules and laws and professionalism. So the moon here shows that for the next 2.5 days, there's going to be a stronger emotional need to be more serious, to be more professional, to work at things, to look at your goals and your ambitions. It just puts more emphasis on the serious side of life. But at the same time, as the moon comes in here, it picks up on the squares now to all of these Aries planets in transit. So it adds another challenging dynamic to the week here as the moon squares Neptune, squares Saturn, and squares Venus, which will be the following day on Thursday. But right here we have a mood change, and It's ruled by this planet, Saturn, that's in new territory. So there's likely going to be some new results as we get to mid to late week with the world development and what's going on in our own lives. Work is a stronger theme, though, from this point forward. All right, and then we do get to the following day on Thursday, March 12, and the first aspects is the moon squaring Neptune and Saturn and Venus for the first part of the day. So the first part of the day is the more challenging part. Moon square Neptune shows uncertainty on the global point, on the world point. But it's only for a few hours. We could feel a little bit uncertain about something. There's a little bit more of a cloudiness, and it could also just be a little more confusing for a few hours. A pressure could start to come in, a work pressure. There could be some limitations, some restrictions that we have to adjust to. I would say first thing on Thursday morning, take your time. Don't try to rush. I would give yourself plenty of time if you have an appointment or you're doing something on Thursday morning, because there could be delays, there could be cancellations, there could be other obstacles that are showing that it's a challenging moment for Thursday, first half of the day. Again, very serious. There's also things that are trying to start. These are cardinal placements, initiating something, but it's not a moment that I would want to initiate something serious for the long term. I'd wait, for this moment to be clear, because it can show if you are starting something in this moment on Thursday morning, this dynamic could be a part of the outcome overall for the long term. So people are going to feel a little bit moody, a little bit edgy perhaps on Thursday morning. And serious vibes in the air. And then as the day goes on, that moon will square Venus. So that's another clash here between the mood, the feelings, the needs, and the desires. There could be some relationship tension, especially professional business relationships. Could have a little bit of tension on Thursday. But it could also be on a more personal level. Venus in Aries, our own personal desires, things that we want to go get right now and do right now. Maybe work is getting in the way. The moon in Capricorn, maybe there's a block. We have responsibilities, commitments to take care of. We can't just do our own personal desires. Some tension in that process is possible. Or again, a tension between independence and freedom versus work and responsibilities and commitments and duties. And then personal relationships just might be clashing a little bit. The moon is debilitated in Capricorn, so it's not the easiest. Venus is debilitated, so they're both in an aspect of debilitation. So it's like we want something, we need something, we desire something, but is it available for us? Possibly not. Or what is available might not be as satisfying or contentful there. So that's a possibility. It won't last forever. And as the day goes on, the energy will get easier, because now the moon will be making easy aspects for the rest of the day. As the moon moves forward, it starts to make that connection to Mars and the nodes of fate. So now there's an opening for good action, professionalism, being more structured, more disciplined in this moment on Thursday afternoon. Plus, as the moon is connecting to the nodes of fate, it's a fateful time. Whatever is happening is fateful, and that will carry over to the following day as Mars will be reaching that north node, activating destiny. So it may start here perhaps on Thursday. So for the next couple of days, there's a lot of fate and destiny at play based on whatever is happening in the world. Has a connection to the long-term future. But we also have a connection to the south node of Virgo to improve things, make things better in work, service, and health life, get to the details of things. This is more earthly in this moment, which is helpful. We need earth because we have so much water and fire now. It can be a little bit steamy. We need to get more grounded and practical. So the moon is trying to help us out with that. And then the last aspect that the moon will make is a sextile over to Mercury. So now, rather than the square, Mercury and the moon are cooperating with each other. Now, this is a better time to do publishing, broadcasting, errands, mercurial things, because things can be flowing better in the circumstances, less blocks, less restrictions, less obstacles in those ways. So now the heart and the mind are more on the same page. So communicate, express yourself, especially in any kind of professional goals, ambitions, work stuff, health things. So that's the sextile. So things smooth out a little bit by the time we get to Thursday evening and Thursday night. That's sextile 11 degrees. And then we get to Friday on March 13th. The moon is halfway through Capricorn and starts off with the opposition to Jupiter at 15 Cancer. Still very slow, barely moving. Over amplified because it is still stationary. Everything is big in the Cancerian area of life this week. So the moon is bringing a culmination point to that in a sense. Everything is big energy. Everything's come to a head here on Friday morning. So big circumstances, big moods, big feelings. It can be for good or bad. But what we see is that there is a lot going on this day that's fateful, including the Venus South Node and the Mars North Node. So again, there's something being activated potentially Thursday, Friday, or maybe into the weekend, but probably here on Friday with military. Something about the military could have a ripple effect, a long-term effect. Yes, that's already happening in the background for sure, but this is something separate that could come out. We'll see if it manifests in that way, or if we'll even see it at all, because it's Pisces, it's hidden, it's behind the scenes. And even this Mars in Pisces deals a lot with the Navy. You know, even when Mars first came into Pisces at 0 degrees, that's when the U.S. submarine sank a ship, Iranian ship there, plus there's been like 40 ships sunk, so it has a lot to do with the Navy. So there could be like a Navy event or something hidden in the water, ocean event, something that's behind the scenes here that's not as visible, that's going to affect the long-term future. But for all of us, just know that action this Friday, whatever we're doing on Friday, pay extra close attention to what you're doing, because it's more important than normal. Whatever you're doing, could have this ripple effect for the future in a major way. And whatever, it could also just give us a sense that we're on the path that we're meant to be. Especially if you have 8 degrees of Pisces, then you're wrapped up in this perfect conjunction with the North Node and Mars. So if you do have a planet at 8 degrees of Pisces, then you're really wrapped up in a fateful, destined event around Friday. But it all depends on the exact degree and minute of your personal planet. But I would say, Friday would be likely the activation of it. And then Venus in conjunct to the South Node, having to adjust relationships in work, in health, money and health, adjusting something about money and health is possible, or other things that, again, our need for freedom and independence and what we want to be doing right now, we might have to adjust to what we need to do with work, service, or health life in some way that takes away a little bit of the freedom on Friday. And then the moon is sextile the sun. So this is a part of the lunar phase where now the moon and the sun are in harmony. They're cooperating with each other. The inner feelings and the mood is now on the same page with what we're focused on. So this just generally shows an easier part of the lunar cycle where things are more flowing, more smooth, more cooperative, generally speaking. And then the last aspect is the moon making a square to Chiron. Adds some sensitivity about the self and the circumstances and the mood and what's happening on late Friday night. So late Friday night, and I'm talking, super late here, right before midnight, is this aspect. So be a little more cautious if you are out on the town on late Friday night. Be more careful of accidents, injuries, or other things that could be happening in the environment. All right, so that's Friday. Let me see where I'm at. Okay. Moving forward. We get to Saturday on March 14. The moon is at the last degrees of Capricorn before it'll change signs. And this is the day that has the easier aspects, although there's still a lot of intensity about it all. But the moon trine Uranus would normally show that circumstances are more flowing with innovation, practical innovation, work innovation, trying new things with work and business and professionalism and money and resources. If you are open to being innovative, stepping outside the box, working with changes in a practical way on first thing Saturday morning, then it can have positive results. And then the moon is reaching the last degrees of Capricorn, a sense of urgency as the day goes on, first thing in the morning. But for most of the day, it's going to be the moon in Aquarius because the moon will change signs first thing on Saturday morning for most people. So this is a change of the mood and the circumstances now for the next 2.5 days. Moon coming into Aquarius puts more emphasis, more emotions and feelings into an intellectual way of working with emotions and feelings, detaching a little bit more, intellectualizing, being more objective about things, and not so emotionally wrapped up into how it feels as much. But it's still very emotionally intense because the moon is right next to Pluto. It's a little bit of extremism as possible here on Saturday with groups and friends and community. And it's more outward, it's more social for this weekend as the moon is going through Aquarius. So, yeah, it does put more energy into local community and groups and friends and all that kind of stuff. But it also shows that for the next 2.5 days, there's going to be more in the world about technology and science and politics and all these things that Aquarius rules. And as the moon goes through Pluto, it amplifies, intensifies. There could be a sense of something going through a transformation on a Saturday. The moon is also sextile right as it comes into Aquarius. It's now in better harmony with the Aries world development points here. So the moon sextile Neptune can add more of an inspiration, a dream. It's showing that there's also a stronger need for freedom and independence. Even though this is about group and community, Aquarius still needs its space and its freedom. So if it wants to be wrapped up in community, then fine, but it can also support independence and doing what you want to do easier this weekend. So it can go either way. You could do your own thing independently with the Aries cooperation or be wrapped up in community events or social events or anything like that. But on the other hand, there's still a strong pull for people into behind the scenes and what's hidden and private with all the water. And we just have this one spot of air, so we're mostly water still and then fire. So emotional, sensitive, and instinctive, but we don't have a lot of the energy to help us analyze, be intellectual about things. But so this moon could try to help us through that process. So the sextile to Neptune, again, inspiring, dreamy, creative, in more of a physical, active way. And then the sextile over to Saturn as the day goes on, I think helps people feel more mature, more practical and stable, even though it's still fire and air. More maturity it's possible and stability. But it's still right there. Moon, Pluto. The Saturn is also building up that sextile too to Pluto. It's not quite exact yet, but I'll be talking about that in the coming weeks. So the moon connecting to both Saturn and Pluto, the two heavyweights here. It's pretty powerful. It's serious. It's intense. It's transformative, based on what's happening. Now this is Saturday evening and Saturday night by the time the moon reaches Pluto and the sextile to Saturn. And that's the last aspect, is the conjunction of moon Pluto. So you have to make sure that you're not nurturing yourself in destructive ways with Moon Pluto. Because again, it can be a little bit of an extremism, emotional extremism, an emotional need for something that's too much of a good thing, but it can also be, again, intense circumstances, transformation happening, a power control dynamic that's happening. But we seem to be comfortable with it because of the minor grand trine that's also in place. All right, that's what we have there for Saturday night. So as far as Saturday night goes, the moon is conjunct Pluto in the evening hours. So late Saturday night, other than the Pluto dynamic, it could be a decent night perhaps, but still intense and powerful. So now moving forward, we get to Sunday on March 15. The moon is still in Aquarius. And the main aspect of the day is Mercury conjunct Mars. So Mercury is backed up into this conjunction with Mars, and that can really stimulate the mind, communications, fantasies, dreams, illusions in this particular dynamic. It's also something that we're reflecting on again, going back and reflecting on last time Mercury went across this point, plus Mercury's now backing up to the North Node of Destiny to go direct soon. And, we're starting to get more and more clarity, but this can really stimulate communication, mental intensity, edginess, some conflict. It can break things too, especially the fact that Mercury's retrograde and crossing over Mars. Mechanical issues are possible, breakdowns. Other things can just break on you easily. So be aware of that. And then check yourself and your instincts around communication. It's not as intense communication as other signs because it is Pisces, but it's still Mercury, Mars, that can agitate, break things, create conflict. Transportation and traveling could have some issues here around Saturday into Sunday. And really, there's not a whole lot of easy stuff going on this day. The moon is also in conjunct to the South Node, so having to adjust work, service, and health on Sunday versus the outer world. And then we do have one easy aspect for Sunday, and that's the moon sextile Venus. But this is in a much better position for the self. I suppose it's good for group, friend activity. It's moon Venus, but it's not like super intimate. This is more detached, more about freedom and independence within group, friends, and community. It is more social though, so there can still be a good connection with others and friends going on here on Sunday morning. It is happening first thing in the morning, so it won't be all day. But there's this moment here of a better connection with circumstances and pleasure, desires, relationships, others, better connection going on. And then the last aspect will be the moon making an in conjunction to Jupiter. So again, we're having to adjust to the home, the family, the safety, security, the needs, the inner world versus our outer world with group and friends and community. 2 different pages were on there. A little bit of irritation or again, changes and adjustments could happen on Sunday afternoon between being out versus what's going on in your home or inward life. And that's the last aspect for Sunday. So Sunday afternoon, the moon is just waxing or actually waning through Aquarius. Kind of not a whole lot of major stuff besides what we already had activated. Until we get to Monday on March 16, and the moon is at the last degrees of Aquarius. The moon is making a sextile to Chiron on Monday morning. So another moment there that's helpful for the self and feelings and health and just how people feel about themselves. Or again, there could be a healing potential in place for people on Monday morning. But then as the day goes on, the moon in Aquarius will square Uranus in Taurus. And this is going to be by afternoon, evening, depending on where you live. So Moon square Uranus can be disruptive, can be circumstances, could go through a change of some type. Mood and feelings could be changeable. We're not as comfortable with being innovative and trying new things as much. It could be a little more of a stubbornness too that comes in. Lack of stability is possible on Monday afternoon. Could be a little bit of a revolutionary vibe. This is also the eclipse degree. Remember, when Mars went over that eclipse degree, the war started. So there could also be something here critical about the war. Even Uranus begins to square the eclipse degree as well. So there's still a lot of activation about this war, Middle East war going on here. And then the last thing that will happen is the moon will ingress Pisces for a change of mood and feelings and circumstances for the next 2.5 days. And this change will happen by Monday night. And then you'll notice it the following day, next week, next Tuesday. Moon will be in Pisces, moving towards that new moon at the end of Pisces. So now that the moon is in Pisces by Monday night, it's being rolled by Jupiter direct, and all of this Pisces comes back to Jupiter. So again, so much water. But now next week, Mars will be building the trine to Jupiter. Mercury will station direct. The moon will trine Jupiter, cross over everything, reach that new moon. And then we come into the equinox, spring, and it's going to be such a powerful year for what becomes initiated this spring, especially by April. All right, folks, so that's what I'm having. That's what I see for you guys this week. And I'm not going to worry about it. It's only 42 minutes, but that's the way it is. So hope you got something out of that. I appreciate you watching. Help me out and thumb up my video. I'm surprised that not a lot of people like my astrology videos, actually. That's okay, because I'm here for the people that do like it, and I appreciate all of you that watch it. And I'm going to be making some changes this year. I say that every year, but this is the year that I really do need to make some major changes with my work. So we'll see how that goes. Also keep in mind the time change. Arizona doesn't change time, so I'm still Mountain Standard Time, but I'm not the same as Mountain Time anymore. All the other mountain states, they're in Mountain Daylight Time now, so I'm different than them. I'm Mountain Standard Time all year around. So if you change time, you're going to have to adjust the difference between us again for the aspect list. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you have a great week. Take good care.